Um, I have a question for you. It's a simple question. It's really the building block of my entire message. The question is this: where is your focus? What are you currently focused on? In this season of life, what has your attention? That question is setting the pace, or at least the direction, of your daily decisions. What has your focus? A personal mentor, a leadership guru by the name of John Maxwell said there's a number of reasons that people choose to change. The title of this series is Refocus. Earlier this week, I was speaking to a mom, and she said, my focus or my purpose had been raising my little girls, and one of them's almost out of high school, and the other one's a teenager, so right now I'm just focused on me and my dog every day. I need something to refocus on. And I said, I hear you. And what she was saying was, my focus was in the right place at the right time, but now I need to refocus. Had another friend said, yeah, my husband and I are talking, and we're just trying to figure out, are we focused on the right things? Maybe you're single and you're going, what should I focus on right now? Right now, between Gilmore Girls and, watching all my other friends hang out, or maybe I'm hanging out a little too much. I don't know if I'm focused on the right things. And what John Maxwell says, the point that I'm getting to here, is that people refocus or they change for a number of reasons. And one of them is, he says when people hurt enough, they change. When you hurt enough, you'll change. He said, for some of us, when we see enough, we're inspired to change. I didn't know life could be like that sober. I remember being a little boy driving through particular neighborhoods in Waterloo that looked a lot different than mine, and thinking, man, I want to live there one day, and inspiring. I wanted to be someone different. I wanted to do something different. Growing up without a dad, I knew what I didn't want to be. I didn't want to be like him. But that's not the same thing as having a vision for what I want it to be. And so I started getting around older men and started getting inspired to change. So for some of us, he says, when we learn enough, then we'll know how to change. He says, and sometimes when you receive enough, you'll be able to change. Some of us, it's hard to change because we just feel like we're running out of deficit. I don't know what your reason is for change, but I want to encourage you that if you'll take some time to refocus, I really believe with all of my heart that you'll find the results that you're looking for. More importantly, my prayer is that it wouldn't just be a self-seeking search, but it would be a God-centered search for life. I want to talk to you about the power of focus. If you've got our app, you can open it up and follow along with me. And I want to talk to you specifically. Here's the title of the message: The Power of a Focused Life. The power of a focused life. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 25, Solomon says this: let your eyes look straight ahead and fix your gaze directly before you. Because it's very easy to lose focus. It's very, very easy to lose focus. To let other things get our time, our attention, our energy, our resources, our hearts, and it's easy to get off focus. So he says, hey, listen to me. What you need to do is you got to look straight ahead. Eyes set, vision fixed, he says, on the path that is laid out. Let it go straight ahead of you. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet, and be steadfast in all your ways. Let me just lovingly say, some of you, you're on a path, but it's on the wrong one. It's a path, it's a beaten path. You look, you go, yep, that's the way forward. But just because they walk there doesn't mean that you should follow them. My mom used to say to me, if your friends jumped off a bridge, would you do it too? And at 15, she couldn't ask that question no more. I jumped off a couple bridges by that point because my friends had. And so you are following the path. I would just ask you, are you on the right path? Are you focused in the right direction? He says, be careful where you walk. Just pay attention. If you continue this pathway, where's it going to lead you? He says, do not turn to the right or to the left, but keep your foot from evil. So here's the question of the day. Here's the issue I'm pressing in on, because all of us are at different stages in our life, in our spiritual journey, and all of us have a vision for something, even if it's for our own comfort and peace. We're all moving in the direction of our greatest desire or in the direction of God's destiny. I'll get to that in a minute. And here's the question right here. Here's the flashing light. Because we all want to win. And I want to say to you, the only thing worse than losing is winning at the wrong thing. The only thing worse than losing is to win at what really doesn't matter, Lonnie. What did it cost me to get what I have? How many relationships did I break? How much anguish did I cause? How many people did I hurt? How often and how long did I lose sight of what really mattered in my pursuit of you fill in the blank? And I want to encourage us to live the kind of life that wins at what matters most. I want to give us the power to be focused on the right things, fixed in the right direction. So today, a very simple message, I want to give you three keys to unlock the power of a focused life. And then I want to present to you what I believe to be the most essential key that will cause all the other dominoes to fall. It's a very simple message, but it's a very needed one. Focus is easy to get, but it's hard to keep. Easy to get and hard to keep. I started the year off 2023. I said, I'm going to lose 15 pounds. In the first 30 days, I lost 5. I'm happy to report I'm up 20. You hear what I'm saying, everybody? It's easy to get. It's hard to keep. So what do we do? I'm going to give you the first key. Write this down if you're a note taker. I think it's going to help you. And it's really the key of decision. It's the key of decision. Here's what I want to say to you, that we will either live for our desires or we'll live for our destinies. It's always one or the other. We'll either live for our desires, what we think, what we want, what we feel, what we think is most important, small things, menial things, things that don't really matter, or we'll have our eyes fixed and focused on this greater call, this greatest purpose, this greater value. But we are all you are being pulled since high school. You've been being pulled by a desire to fit in, a desire to be liked, a desire to be popular, a desire to have more. You fill in the blank what you said. You know what? This is the most important thing for me. You wouldn't have said it at the top of your mind, but your decisions revealed it. The direction of your life revealed it. And you've had your focus fixed on that thing. What makes us more than mammals, more than just natural breathing animals, no more than an ape, a donkey, or a giraffe, is that we have the ability to choose. We can determine the direction of our lives. I don't have to be led by my natural impulse and gut desire. I don't have to do whatever my mind thinks and my heart desires or my body feels. Or I can, and it will ultimately lead to a life of destruction and despair. And many of us are looking at the rubble of some wrong decisions, and we're trying to rebuild from that place. And the first key to unlock the door of destiny, a life filled with focus, is to determine, will I live for desire or will I live according to destiny? There's a problem with that phrase. I'll get to it here in a minute. Essentially, here's what I've learned about life is that, number one, here's what you need to know, is that discipline is going to be required. Why? Because discipline is doing what you don't want to do. And self-control is required because self-control is not doing what you really want to do. So discipline is getting up and going to the gym when I want to hit snooze. Clearly, I ain't disciplined. But it's a good idea. It's a truth, even if I'm not doing it. Self-control is not eating that caramel cake when church is over, which I'm going to do. So clearly, I need help on this one. Do you hear what I'm saying, everybody? I didn't say I'm doing it. I just said it's the right decision, okay? So it's hard because I gotta preach the message to me before I preach it to you. So I'm usually miserable. I'm like, oh, man, I can't wait till Sunday comes so I can hurry up and say this stuff and not be miserable no more. Well, you can live for desire or destiny. Paul says it this way in Galatians chapter 5:16. Watch this. Here's what he says. So I say to you, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of your flesh. Walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of your flesh. So here's what he's saying, Chris. He's saying that when God made man, he put us in this physical body. Initially, mankind was made in God's image without flaw, without frailty, and without failure. through the first sin of our parents, Adam and Eve, in the garden when they ate from the tree, it wasn't about the fruit that they ate. It was the decision that they made that they wanted to do their will instead of God's way. The moment they did that, they came out from under the protection, provision, and guidance of a loving God who had created them to begin with. And they, in that decision, passed down to us a sinful nature. God calls you a sinner not because you sin because that is your new nature now. Let me say it this way. You and I were all born with a cancer gene. It's called sin. That's why you don't have to teach a child to be bad. You have to teach them to be good. It's like, who taught you those words? Uncle Bob? You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, you got to teach them to be good. And now, although as a Christian, I've given my life to Jesus and His Spirit lives in me, I'm still locked inside this human body. My body isn't sinful, it's good. God didn't make it without a flaw. God made it without a flaw. My body's good. But it's the things that my body wants that are bad. And just because you want it doesn't mean it's right. The Bible calls that a sinful nature or flesh. And now what Paul is saying, you can either live by that or you can walk a new life by God's Spirit. Empowered by Him, filled with His light, filled with His truth, filled with His love. Why is that important? You can't get to a destiny that you didn't create. You got to go to the one who made you to understand what it is. So you got to decide whose will and whose way will I follow. Is this making sense to everybody? I'm trying to put the cookies on the low shelf. Is everybody getting one? These guys are. Are y'all getting one back there? How about up in the back? Are y'all understanding what I'm saying? Yeah, okay, about 10 people, okay. I got more work to do. Number 2, the second key. Listen, if I can get up here and I could shout and jump around and be entertainment. I could try to inspire you with slick words, but it won't change you. It'll just frustrate you. Because if I inspire you without instructing you, then what I'm doing is setting you up for premeditated frustration and doubt. Why? Because I've given you a vision of what could be, but I didn't tell you how to get there. So you'll leave the room feeling good, but then in 2 days you're going to feel bad because everything I said didn't come true, and then you're going to doubt God and you're going to be frustrated with yourself. So I can excite your mind or I can educate your life. I'm choosing the latter. Does that make sense? You'll catch it later. It's okay. It's okay. It's my job. I love my job. Number 2, key unlock a power of a focused life. This is super simple. You know it already, but that's the hard part. It's not knowing, it's in the doing. So here it is, that if what's important to you doesn't show up in your schedule, it'll never show up in your life. It will only live in your mind. I'm going to say it one more time, and I'm going to say it slow for the people who are still processing. If what's important doesn't show up in your calendar, it will never show up in your life. It will only live in your mind. Have you ever been laying down at night and went, I forgot to text Mom today, it's her birthday. I forgot to send flowers to my coworker. Did we close the garage? You ever had that happen? There's this thing, it's a wonderful tool. It's called a calendar on a smartphone. Let me tell you how it works. It will ensure that you don't forget anything. So in this thing called a calendar, you can put what's important. And guess what? It will even bring, and it will tell you what you need to do. You never have to forget again. Wow. You can go home now. I just saved some of y'all's marriages. I got flowers on my calendar, everybody. I never missed about every 3 months. It's bing. She goes, oh my gosh, you remember? I go, babe, you always on my mind. That's why, girl. Shoot, what you talking about? What you talking about? I'm just telling you. Some of y'all are like, every 3 months? Okay. Your wife ain't here today. She can be like, how was the message? You're like, oh, it wasn't no good. Don't even watch it, sweetie. Don't even watch it. Just don't even watch it. You're welcome, everybody. You're welcome. But what happens is it ends up living in our minds. I'm just trying to show you the pathway to get and do the thing that you were created for. Because you want to win. Nobody wakes up, looks in the mirror and says, well, I hope I lose at life. I hope I suck. I mean, nobody does that. but we don't know how to get to the thing that's in our heart that most likely God put there. And it requires a measure of focus to get it, the power of a focused life. Well, the reason I'm bringing this up, this is the second key, super practical, is because Ephesians chapter 5, listen to what Paul says. He says, so be careful then how you live. He says, don't live like fools, but live like those who are wise. So there's a way in which we can live where just an objective assessment, someone could say that's not very smart. Like if you have more desires than you have dollars, that's not going to work. I can tell you right now, your taste is more expensive than your current employment. So get the knockoff version on Amazon or Temu. You hear what I'm saying? You can't afford Zara's right now. Go to Temu and you're going to be okay. Verse 16, here's what he says. He says, don't live I want a great marriage. Like, I want the kind of marriage that my wife and I, next year, we'll celebrate 30 years of being together. You can clap for that. That's not easy. I want the kind of marriage where she's still my best friend. Like, where I love taking long car rides with her. That's what I want. That's my vision. Which means then I've got to take daily time with her to communicate my appreciation of her. I've got to allow her access into areas of my heart that I feel like I can't share. Otherwise, I don't keep secrets from friends. So if that's the vision, then I've got to be wise in the way that I spend my time. I can't have a good marriage if I'm always hanging out with the bros. I'm not going to marry them. That's weird. You don't need friends that much. So Paul says, when I was a child, I behaved like a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. And that's what Forge is. It's just, that's for anybody, but I just wanted to plug Forge real quick. All right, verse 16, he says, make the most of every opportunity in these evil days. In my mind, they are evil days. I got some good news and some bad news. It's going to get worse and it's going to get better. The Bible says that there's a time coming called the end times where it will get darker, but it also declares a time where the church will get stronger, everybody. Come on. The church is going to get stronger in Jesus' name. He says, therefore, don't act thoughtlessly, but understand what the Lord wants you to do. He says, here it is. Be careful how you live. Don't live like a fool. Be wise. Make the most of every opportunity in these evil days. Use your calendar. Don't act thoughtlessly, but understand what the Lord wants you to do. He says, if you don't know what God wants you to do, then you won't think rightly about what you should do. If you don't know what the Lord wants you to do, then you can't think rightly about what the Lord wants you to do. Can I just lean in? Everybody watch this. This is really hard to do if you don't know that you've been created with a purpose. He says, use your time fulfilling God's purpose for your life. Well, that's kind of hard to do if I don't know what God's purpose for my life is. That means I'm going to be focused on the wrong things. That means I'm going to win at what doesn't matter. Did you see the connection? He says, don't be thoughtless. Focus on what God wants you to do. Well, if I don't know what God wants me to do, then I'm giving all of my time and my attention to the wrong thing. And then I may be really good at it, but it really doesn't matter. So it's worse than losing because I've wanted the wrong thing. That's why every Sunday, someone gets up here and says, go through Growth Track. I want to help you find out what the Lord wants you to do. Get in an MC, get in a group. Right now, they're open. Find a group. We got hunting groups and women's groups and single mom groups and working out. What's it called? Working out. That's why I ain't doing it, because I can't spell it. That group where you lose weight. I just preach on Sunday. I'm sweating like a pig. Don't you laugh too hard at that. It's total rabbit. I'm talking about focus, and clearly I have none. We ate 265 pounds of pork in 21 days at the men's retreat. It was one day. It was 21 hours technically. Y'all some pigs. I didn't eat now, and they did. Okay. All right, it was great. That's probably why I'm sweating like one right now. It totally has nothing to do with the message. I enjoyed my weekend a lot. Okay. So I want you to know what God's will is, whether it's getting in a group or getting on the team. It's really important because we don't want to spend our lives when, what doesn't matter. There's actually 7 areas I want to just give you. If you go to our app at 1 o'clock, I'll update it with a document that will tell you exactly how to do what I'm going to say. I just don't have time to go through all the details. I learned this over 20 years ago to have a focused life vision in these 7 areas. You can take a picture. If you haven't identified this, I can guarantee you're wasting time. Or you're doing it, but you're not doing it. Don't take a picture of me yet, because it's not a pretty picture. But you're doing things, but it's not with the kind of focus that you may need. Now, some of you, you're doing it, you just have never categorized it. And said, this is one of the 7 areas. Because you don't know there's another 6, all your focus is going to the one that you're really good at, or to the one that's necessary for you to pay your bills, or the one that gives you the most value or the sense of success. But when I was in my 20s, so over 2 decades ago, I heard a teaching by a guy named Mike Bickle, and he said this phrase: you have to have a focus in these 7 areas. And I wrote down a one-liner for all of these areas. In the document, I'll tell you about it all. Spiritually, relationally, vocationally, so spiritually, my relationship with God. What kind of friend do you want to be? I want to be the kind of friend that answers the phone at 3 a.m. I want to be the kind of friend who stays when everybody else leaves. I want to be the kind of friends that's like a step uncle or a step aunt or whatever you call her, a god aunt or people is good. That's my God baby. 3, vocationally, what do you want to do with your career? 4, what is the ministry God? Every one of you have been called to ministry, not just me. Do you know what that ministry is? I want to help you find. Oh my gosh, living is breathing air. Existing is breathing air. Living is knowing why you do. Do you know why? It's not just for this, and it's not just for this. Those 2 things stop and start. They stop and end with you. They start and end with you. But this one is eternal. This one is eternal. Economically, like I want to have $45,000 saved by the time I'm 45, or I want to have $60,000 saved by the time I die, or I want to be able to afford $1 million life insurance policy. I don't know, figure out that thing, but what is the goal? And then there's this one. I don't want to talk about this one because clearly I ain't doing it, but it's physically. And then number 7 is rest. Number 7, you're going to skip right past it. Number 7 is rest. It's up there, though. Write it down. Number 7 is rest. They ain't that funny. Don't be laughing at me. Monday, my wife says I'm going on she calls it God's food. Oh, Lord. I'm happy, honey, because she'll watch this service. I'm happy. It's going to be great. 7 areas. There you go, everybody. Why am I telling you to write it down? Well, because Habakkuk, God says to this man named Habakkuk, here's what he says. Then the Lord answered me and said, write the vision down, make it plain, so that he may run who reads it. And this is talking about what God was going to do in Israel's history, but the principle is the same. He says, write it down, so that way when you see it, you can actually run with it. You can actually make it actionable is the idea there. And again, that's why I want to encourage you to get in a group, get on a team, join us for Forge. Actually, part of Forge is going to be us writing out our life vision. And here's the third and the last one. And this is what I heard that blew my mind and changed my life. These are just keys. Key number 1, you got to decide, really, desires or destiny. Key number 2, you got to decide it's going to show up in my calendar. It's going to change what I do. I'm going to learn to say yes to the right things and say no to the wrong things. Number 3, here's what I realized about these decisions. And this is what blew me away. And here's what I heard him say. How you spend your time is how you spend your life. Changed my world. Every last one of us, by God's grace, we are given, I believe it's 148, 168 hours a week, somewhere around there, every one of us. And I heard this teaching, and he said, you ought to know what you've done with every minute of your life. And then he said, therefore, you need to put yourself on a schedule. He said, I'd encourage you to build your life around 15-minute increments. And when I heard him say it, I said, that's what I'm going to do. Now, mind you, at this time, I am 22 years old. I am incarcerated, and I know that I have to be incarcerated for 7.5 years. And so, for 7 years, I lived my life based on 15-minute increments. You could ask me, what'd you do last year at 7 p.m., and I could tell you with 90% accuracy. Why am I saying that? A lot of the guys have been like, man, Pastor Q, like, how'd you, and I tell them, it's because I lived a focused life. And that's what happens on the other side of, literally, I was talking to a guy at the retreat, and he goes, man, I want to learn the Bible, and man, I want to know all the history, and you know, the truth is, I didn't learn the Bible so that I could be a pastor. I knew I would be a pastor, but I didn't learn the Bible to be a pastor. I learned the Bible because I love God, and secondly, I learned the Bible because I had a daughter, and I wanted to answer all of her Bible questions. I wanted her to see me as a trusted source of spiritual wisdom. I don't know what your why for focus is, but you need to figure it out. And so what I would encourage you to do is realize this is a truth, and here's the headline, is that what Moses says in Psalm 90, verse 12, he says, so teach us to number our days so that we may apply our hearts to wisdom. Listen to me. Many of us are on the second half of our life. Some of us are in the fourth quarter. I'm past 40. So I'm technically over the hill if I live to be 80. And that's if I'm strong. I want to finish well. I don't want to just start fast. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't want my kids to have to lie at my funeral about the kind of man that I was. Don't make me lie about the kind of church member you were at your funeral. Live in such a way that I realize I have an allotted amount of days, and I have to decide, what am I going to do with them? What kind of man will I be? What kind of impact will I leave? How will I be remembered? I only have so many hours in the day to give away, only so many. And sometimes that means there are some people who I like a lot who don't make the list because people who I like more have to be on the list. And then the next day, those people are on the list and other people aren't. I'm just saying, when you know what you live for, you know what to say no to. And that's all I want for you. If you're going to refocus, let's get real and let's refocus on the right things. Well, then what should we focus on, Pastor Q? I'll tell you, Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1 says this. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and all the sin that so easily entangles. In other words, there's some stuff that's in the way of you reaching the goals. There's some stuff that's in the way, right, Taylor? There's some stuff that's in the way, wants to trip you up. See, y'all are off focus already. Y'all doing exactly what I said don't do. 3 people moved and y'all was like, I don't know what he's saying. I'm not listening. Come on and get on up here. Come on. They can't chew and walk at the same time. Come on and get on up here. All right. See, great analogy, right? We planned that. Kind of. I planned for your being distracted is what I planned for. Okay, watch this. Throw off everything that hinders, the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race that has been marked out for us. Can I just tell you? I want to encourage somebody today. If being married is hard, if right now raising your kids, it's hard. If getting past that addiction is hard, if getting healthy emotionally and mentally is hard, if getting healthy physically is hard, I've got good news. That means you're doing it the right way. It's not supposed to be easy if it's good. What's good and what's easy aren't the same things. It won't always stay hard, but I love that the writer says, run the race with perseverance. Why? Because he said, it's going to be sometimes it's going to be hard. Well, what do I do when it gets hard? How do I stay focused? Fix your eyes on Jesus. There's a little boy, he was the fastest kid in school, and he fastest kid in school, but he could never stay focused on one direction. He would always veer off into other people's lanes and therefore get disqualified. And was the fastest kid in school. And so his father said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to help my son. And he said, son, it was a 100-yard dash. He said, so he stood at the end, or right after the finish line. And he said, son, when you run, just stay focused on me. Because your feet will follow your eyes. So what are you going to do? I'm going to fix my eyes on Jesus. And I'll tell you that a life fixed on Jesus will be marked with freedom. Once you get your eyes on him, you'll find he'll give you the keys you need to get free. Filled with purpose, filled with fulfillment, filled with meaning, filled with endurance. That when you fix your eyes on Jesus, you go, Jesus, I want your way. You'll find he'll give you the wisdom you need to be a good husband for her, to be a good mother to them. He'll, if you fix your eyes on him, if you go, Jesus, I'm going to fix, because remember, I don't want to focus on the wrong thing and win at life, but lose at eternity. I don't want to win at the wrong things. Jesus said, what is the profit of man to gain the whole world and yet lose his soul? He didn't say, I don't want to bless you, I don't want to prosper you. He just said that can't be first. And what I found, if I'll focus on Jesus, he'll teach me how to be wise and discerning, and he'll give me ideas in the workplace that will lead to my promotion. I found it's the first domino. If that domino drops, all the others will follow. If that domino falls, I said, I'm going to give you 3 keys, and I'm going to tell you the one you should focus on first. If you focus on this one, the rest of them will fall. How do you know? I'm 20 years strong. A man with an experience is never at the mercy of a person with an opinion. I'm telling you what I know, not what I read. You would never have guessed my life to be what it is. If I told you who I was, you stop coming to church. You don't know me. You really don't. You really don't. And that man is dead and buried in the grave somewhere. Never to be remembered, because he has been forgiven. And I love that God said, you can't dig in my graveyard. It's buried. And so I'm just telling you, I know from experience, the moment I put my focus on Jesus, and I ain't perfect, I fall down. Just ask my bros, ask my kids. I fall. Don't ask my kids, because I ain't gonna like that. Because don't do that, because ain't none of your business. Like, I ain't gonna talk about what you do at home when you get frustrated, and I ain't gonna talk about what I do. My point is, I got issues, just like you got issues. But boy, I'm focused. I'm focused. And I want that for you. More importantly, God wants that for you. And actually, today we're celebrating, because a number of our siblings said, I'm fixing my eyes on Jesus. And I'm going to walk one step at a time with him.